Okay, let's do this thing again. This time we're back with cards from the first round of the Dark Ages thing. This is the first time I'm looking at these cards, except I did submit, full disclosure, I did submit one of these, and I have possibly seen one or a few others um, on sort of a consult job. I will try to react to them like I haven't seen them before, just like I will try to do for my own. Anyway, here we go. First of all, we have Cultivate. Oh, and there's this note. 3 Kingdom cards that use a supplementary non-Kingdom card. In each case, there are 5 copies of the supplementary card. I can already tell you right now I'm not going to like those, because A, part of it is a little bit selfish. You're using up all 5 of the slots. B, 5 is not many, but you're using up all 5 of the slots that we have free space for, which means no victory cards, and no victory cards makes me a sad panda. So I'm probably just not voting for those, just straight off. I'm also not the hugest fan of adding new extra piles, because, man, we already have several of those, and they're fine, but I guess we'll see. If I really love the idea, then I'll go for it, but they have a higher burden, right? Okay, Cultivate. It's non-terminal. You can either trash a victory card from your hand and gain a treasure costing up to 1 more, or trash a treasure and gain a victory card costing up to 2 more. And this is worth either a VP or 3 if there are at least 4 differently named victory cards in the trash. So, okay. Basically, the idea here is you're turning estates into silvers, duchies into golds, potentially provinces into platina, and you're turning coppers into estates, silvers into duchies, golds into provinces. Um, this seems like a very powerful effect to me. On the other hand, it might be a little bit slow. I mean, it would be much more interesting if you would actually trash duchies into golds, but you're never buying a duchy, you're just buying these first. You can turn them into golds, excess ones. So I think it might even be more interesting if it weren't the victory card. Um, yeah, I don't know, I'm sort of middling on this one, but we need to move on. I actually don't know how many cards there are here. Maybe there are, hold on, let's see. Yeah, there's quite a few. It's about the same amount, I guess. Which is what I expected. Okay, Cemetery. Cemetery is a victory card that's worth 2, plus 1 for every 2 differently named action cards in the trash. Well, differently named makes me feel cornucopia, but it probably needs to be there to stop this from being super strong on a lot of boards. Because you have 2 action piles and you can just trash. When you gain it, you trash a card from your hand other than a cemetery. So you end up just trashing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the thing I don't like about this card is it's just really weak, I think. You can trash curses with it. Trashing ruins with it is actually excellent. But most games you're sitting there, you don't really want to trash your actions. And you have to get a lot of these for it to be like a very powerful alt VP card. To trash a lot of other actions. Maybe with other trashing it can be very strong. But again, I tend to think you don't want to trash your other actions so much. And this isn't going to be worth more than 4 very often. Because you would need, what? 6 differently named action cards in the trash, which is an awful lot of different ones for it to be worth even 5. And it costs 5. And then just trashing a card from your hand is not that good because, well, I mean, if you do it for a curse, it's okay. It's like buying a duchy normally that doesn't take space up, which is fine. That's actually a pretty good effect. But like, you're never going to trash an estate with this because it's just worth 1 point, and really that's not worth it. You're just upgrading up a point, and then it costs 5. So I guess if you have some kind of trash for benefit, maybe you do. But yeah, this seems too narrow, I think, for my taste anyway. Patrol. Discard any number. Then it's an action reaction. Discard any number, then draw until you have 5 in hand. And then it has the tunnel-like reaction, but it has to be from your hand. Okay. And oh, it's whenever you draw a card from, discard a card from your hand, not this, but a different card from your hand other than in the clean up. You may reveal this from your hand, and you can either trash or top deck that. So that's sort of like a cross between the Watchtower reaction, the... We're going to have to go into that later. Let's try to figure out the top part first. Discard any number and then draw to 5. How good is that? Well, it's like a terminal seller that gets you an extra card. Which, getting you an extra card... I don't know. I think that's probably a fine effect. It's terminal. Getting you an extra card is actually pretty good because it gets you back to 5. It's obviously not going to be like just broken because of the top though, so that's fine. But then how does it interact with itself? If you get 2 of these, if you have 2 of them in hand, which means you only have 3 other cards, you can trash 3. Okay. As a defense against militia kind of attacks, it lets you trash stuff. I have a hard time seeing when you're going to be top decking so much. Yeah. Yeah, I don't... I guess I don't really see the top deck. I'm sure I'm missing... There's going to be some great... Well, I would discard it, but now I can top deck it. And of course, there's, you know, those hands you have like platinum, copper, and you discard a copper and then top deck it or something. Or discard a platinum and top deck it, like, because you get hit by an urchin. But really, I can't imagine that happens really very often at all. And if you're doing it in the middle of your turn, I guess you might be seeding your next hand, but that seems like an awful lot of work to seed your next hand. So I'm not really worried about that, but it's a reasonable trasher. Yeah, I don't know. Seems like it might be a little bit strong, but it's not like ridiculous, I don't think. And that's something you could fix with a playtest. So, yeah, I really like the idea of the top part. I'm less sure about the bottom part. And I really don't understand, I guess, how this is Dark Ages, but whatever. I sort of like the card. Okay, Model Village. Model Village is a village that when you trash it, you can trash a card from your hand. Oh, you can remodel. So it's a village that when you trash it, you can remodel something. I feel like village that does something when you trash it is pretty well covered by Fortress. Yeah, I don't love this card. It's probably fine, but I don't, it's not exciting enough to me. Alright, Tribal Man. Gain of Spoils, costs 5, it's an action. Gain of Spoils, reveal cards into, so you dig for an action. You can either put it in your hand. Okay, there's a lot of things going on here. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Like, right, Jack does 4 things, and it's a fine card, and it's not that complicated. But, okay. You put that card in your hand, or you play it. It's a little bit weird to me that it's put the card here, and here it's the action. I mean, it is an action card, so it's the same thing both. I want it to be parallelly phrased. Obviously, that's like a nitpick, but that's like my grammar OCD or my grammar CDO-ness coming out. Anyway, so you can either just put it in your hand, or you can play it and gain a card and trash it for something less. Um, and gaining and when you trash that, you get to gain a card costing an action costing at most 5 that's not one of these. Okay. So there's the self combo. People love making self combo cards. Which, okay, I can't say I blame them. I sort of like it too, but there's a point that you can go too far. I'm not saying that this is, but there is a point that you can. Anyway, gaining a spoils, how good is that? Well, Marauder does it, so it can't be that great. I mean, Marauder's very strong, but it also has the attack on it, and it costs only 4. So, how good is the rest of the effect? You can either draw an action to hand, or trash and gain a cheaper play trash, get a cheaper card. I guess that just mostly doesn't excite me. That's a lot of work for it's an okay effect. I mean, it's like a golem effect, but and then you get the cheaper card, which is sort of like a reverse procession. Um, yeah, I don't, or a stonemason kind of effect, right? It's just not that exciting to me. Moving on. Disciple. Costs 4. You look through your discard. You can take a treasure. You can trash that and another, so that's like treasure map, right? And instead of getting 4 golds, you get a savior. Which, wow. Okay. Savior, Chancellor, you get the, well, Chancellor Scavenger effect. Then you get to look through your discard and draw 1. So it's fine if it's reasonably hard to get to have search your deck for any card. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Which this does. And then you put it in your hand. But then you can also, you can return it to the supply to King's Court in action. Which is just very, very, very strong. And like, I think even yeah, I with the plus an action, this is just a very powerful card. Which I mean, it sort of has to be with as hard as it is to get, but it's not the kind of card that I'm looking for. Especially that it does all that kind of stuff. Just the first line, look through your discard and you can put a treasure into your hand. That's fine. It's like, I am your best treasure in your discard pile. Now, that's obviously very weak, because you draw it at the top of your shuffle and it does nothing. You know, if it was Chancellor effect and you get the best treasure from your deck, that would actually probably be a legitimate 3 or 4 cost card. Probably a 4 cost, right? Because it's like Chancellor, you're getting a silver most of the time. Sometimes you can only get a copper if you have all your silvers and stuff. And sometimes it's a gold or a platinum or something. So I'd actually quite like that idea, but the rest of it I don't really like so much. It doesn't meet the high bar of needing the second card for sure. Okay, renovate. Um, oh, by the way, I just realized that this thing I'm moving my mouse around, I'm subconsciously doing that to try to show you here, this is what I'm looking at. So look at this area, which probably is more of annoying than what I'm trying to do with it, but it's not a conscious thought. Just FYI. Okay, renovate. Renovate sounds like a trash for benefit card. Trash a card from your hand. You may gain a card costing up to one more than the trash card, putting it into your hand. If it's an action, play it. So, okay. If you were trashing an action, there's really no point, right? Except to, I guess you can do it to run out piles, or to get this in play if you really need to. If you're getting the same one back, right? But you can also upgrade, and you can gain the upgrade card into hand. You know, you have to play it if it's an action, which is fine in terms of the throne room, oh, I might lie thing, because they know that you just got it in your hand, right? It's public information that what action you got and such. So that's fine, but like it doesn't help you get some of the more situational ones, except this, right? You can run this pile out immediately if you have two of them. I guess not, but you could run several cards pretty quick, which is probably okay. Maybe a this and Duchy Rush, but you're going to have a third pile. So I guess that's fine because it's not just absolutely run the pile unless you have a big hand already. In which case, okay, I got a big hand. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to run out of pile. I mean, you want to do more exciting things with your big hand. You want to gain 3 provinces or something, right? So that's fine. I don't know, it's sort of interesting, but I think I'm going to have to think about this one more. There's a trash from your hand. So, it's also a May gain, so you can just use this to trash coppers. Estates you'll actually probably want to turn into something. Silver, then it's sort of a remodel. No, I think I sort of like this card. It's not my favorite thing ever, but it's a nice little card. Okay, Brick is a treasure. It costs 5, it's only worth 1. And when you play it, you upgrade a card that you've played already. When you trash this, you gain a copper putting it in hand. Okay. So, largely this is going to be silver that trashes coppers. But it can also trash itself to be to gain gold, which is silver that gains a gold and gets rid of these once you're out of them. It's silver that trashes coppers and is probably a little bit better than loan in that respect. I sort of had a loan variant that was a 4 cost, and it was a silver that trashed a card from play. Which is probably usually, but not always, better than silver, and not something you want to just stack up like 8 of. So I thought it would probably be okay at 4. This, I mean, this has the additional use that you can turn cards that you've already played into better cards, which is sort of big for an upgrade because, right, usually the big problem with remodeling trash for benefit on your actions is that, well, if you do that, you don't get a player action. This doesn't have that problem, so that's fairly nice. I think mine might have, you had to be trashing a treasure. Of course, it could always trash itself, so I don't know. Um, right, and this can trash itself too. So it can turn itself into a gold. Um, why do I think this is a silver? It's not a silver at all. Well, unless it trashes itself. It could be a silver that turns itself into a gold and a copper, which is probably a little bit better than a silver for a big money deck. No, it's definitely a bit better than a silver for a big money deck, because you can trash copper or some other card you have in play at least. So I don't know. This one's also interesting. It's probably a perfectly good card. Interestingly enough, I thought last week had lots and or I guess it was 2 weeks ago had lots and lots of cards that I didn't like at all. This has lots and lots of cards that I like fine. I'm not sure that it has lots of cards that I'm super excited about, but there's lots of cards that I like fine. Okay, Bricklayer costs 4. It's also an action. I say also, the previous one was a treasure. It's about the only one that hasn't been. I guess there was a victory card, reactions and stuff. But anyway, most of them are actions. You can trash any number of differently named cards from your hand, and you get to draw a card for each one of them that you trashed. This definitely feels more like a cornucopia card to me than a Dark Ages card. Yes, it's trashing, but trashing is in every set. And, right, if I remember right, and I probably don't, Cornucopia doesn't have a trasher, so this card could definitely be like a Cornucopia trasher. However, I think it's pretty weak. Right, you usually don't have that many different bad cards that you want to trash. So this is usually going to be trashing 1 or 2 and then drawing 1 or 2. Which is fine, but... and maybe an interesting enough for an effect, except... yeah, I don't know. Obviously it's good against ruins. Sort of. Because you got to draw a lot of cards off of trashing it, but... at trashing them, but it has the same normal problem as a trasher, and... well, I don't know. I'm hard-pressed to find a situation where I'd like this significantly more than Chapel, and there's a lot of situations, in fact, most situations, where I'd like Chapel quite a bit more. I guess this is also good with shelters, huh? Okay, Deathmonger is an obvious parallel to Ironmonger. You trash the top card of your deck, and then you may trash the top card of your deck. Hold on a second. I'll be back in probably 2 minutes. Enjoy some nice quiet time to sit and think. Alright, sorry about that, but I guess that was a little quicker than I expected. Okay, Deathmonger costs 3. It's an action-reaction. Trash the top card of your deck, and you may trash the next one too. Wow. That's a random seeming effect that you basically are not going to want to play very often unless this reaction is really good. In which case it's probably Terra broken, but let's see. When any player, including you, trashes cards, you may reveal this from your hand, so you have to have 2 of these. If you do, that player puts the trashed cards into his hand. Wow, that's sort of like an attack if they're trying to clean themselves up. That's really strong anti-trashing. I and sort of political, so I really don't like that. I also think, um, well, you're just not going to want to play it unless you have a lot of multiples, but you might use the reaction. Yeah, I don't like that design. Okay, Carpenter. Carpenter, trash a card from your hand and gain a cheaper card. Shouldn't that be card costing less? Anyway, whatever. Putting it into your hand. Okay, and plus coins equal to the cost in coins of the gained card. And when you trash it during your action phase, I don't know why that has to be during your action phase. What way is there of trashing this guy? Oh, I know why. It's so that when you trash it during someone else's turn. Got it. Got it. I guess there's also a possession interaction, but it's mostly like if your opponent plays Swindler or Saboteur or Knights or something, this doesn't break the game. So when you trash it during your action phase, you get an action. Okay. So that means that mitigates the cost of having multiple of these. Fine. And then the top bit, right? Trash a card from your hand and gain a cheaper one in hand. Okay, so what can you do with this? I mean, you can trash anything. You can just use it to trash copper, and it works just like any single card trasher to do that. That's obviously not very strong for 5. Estate, you have to gain a copper in hand. I mean, at least you gain it in hand, but it's pretty lousy. I guess this is a trash for benefit, and you're trying to trash expensive cards mostly. So if I trash a province, I get a gold and 6 money, which is a lot of money, but less than you'd get from Salvager. But I'm also getting a gold out of it and in hand, so that's 9 money, which is more than I'm getting from Salvager. But I don't get the buy. So, but I do get a gold, so, I mean, there's that. So that's sort of nice. Trash province, get a duchy and 5 money, and probably have enough to get a province back. Basically using this to gain a duchy. And if I'm trashing like a 6 cost or something, I gain a cheaper card in hand. So if I'm in an engine, I might gain whatever action I need and a bunch of money. Yeah, I mean, this seems reasonable. It's less good than Salvager, except that you get a card back, and so that's actually pretty nice out of it. I might actually do something to make it stronger. I guess with itself, it's non-terminal, but I don't know. Might play with that a little bit. But the core idea of the card, gaining a cheaper one and the money, I do sort of like. Okay, Necromancy. Necromancy is an attack. And, okay, choose one. Gain an action or a treasure from the trash, putting it in hand. Play it immediately. At the end of the turn, trash that card? I don't understand why you're not. Oh, so it doesn't stack with itself, right? If you trash it immediately, you could stack it with itself or get a big loop. Okay, got that. Or each other player reveals the top 2 cards of his deck, trashes one of them, costing from 3 to 6, and discards the rest. So this is like Rogue, except that the gain is optional. You would play the card, and this doesn't give you 2. And then when you trash this, you may gain a card costing up to 6 from the supply if there is not a copy of it in the trash. Okay. Well, that's a really good reaction. Who chooses the trashing? That's probably covered. I don't really feel like this needs another rogue slash knights variant. And while this is somewhat different and interesting, it's not enough to get me super excited. Yeah. Alright, Ravage. Also, Knights and Rogue aren't my favorite cards to start with, and Grave Robber isn't really either. Okay, you may discard a card. If you do, plus an action. Okay. Each other player with 3 or more cards in hand reveals his hand and discards the card with the highest cost in coins you choose in a tie. If he discarded a victory card, he gains a Ruins, putting it into his hand. Which is actually probably not that makes the attack much stronger because it keeps him with it lets you chain these a lot more. That's a really brutal attack, and it's potentially non-terminal, and it doesn't actually help you. So I don't think I like that, because it doesn't progress the game and it just slows it down and mucks it up really badly. So I don't. That doesn't sound like fun, even though it might mechanically be fine. It might appeal to the Spike, but it doesn't appeal to the Timmy in me. If you know your Magic Psychographs, Mark Rosewater, blah blah blah. Okay, Junkyard. A. It's an action looter. Okay, so it's not an attack, but it is a looter. Plus an action, you may gain a Ruins, putting it in your hand. Plus a card per card discarded, plus a card per action discarded, and you can trash this. When you trash this, you draw 2 cards. So, okay, so it's non-terminal. Let's assume I'm gaining the Ruins. If I'm gaining the Ruins in hand, and then I'm discarding it, that is drawing me 2 cards. Plus, so it's that'd be a lab, which gains me something bad. But then I get to Cellar, and if I discard actions, I get even more cards. And then if I trash this, I get even 2 more cards. So the question is, how bad are Ruins? Because if Ruins are bad enough that this isn't worth it, then the card... And I guess the problem is, if Ruins are bad enough that this isn't worth it, the card is just not going to be very good. Unless you're getting, like, Ruins anyway. In which case it's fine. Because it could be... It's like a Cellar that's a one-shot lab anyway. Which means I don't think this card can actually be terrible. Like, Cellar that's a one-shot lab, and you get a discard before you have to make the choice. Yeah. I mean, you get a Cellar before you have to choose whether you want to trash it for 2 or not. I mean, that seems actually quite good, probably, because I don't think actually gaining Ruins is likely all that bad. This would be a really excellent card for Scrying Pool decks, for Vineyard decks, for decks with actions that you might not necessarily want in whatever order. Pretty good for engines, and probably reasonable in just any random old deck. Yeah, I don't know that it's ever... It's probably okay, I guess. But it's not really my cup of tea. It just seems a little bit too unfun good to me, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I feel like I'm trying to justify my opinion, but it's just my opinion. So, anyway, Mortuary. Non-terminal action. Look through your discard, and so it's a non-terminal Hermit for the trashing effect. And then while it's in play, when you trash a card costing 2 or... Oh, I guess this lets you trash coppers too. You trash a card costing 2 or more, draw a card. That actually seems quite weak. I mean, Hermit is good, and this trashes most excellently. Um, but it costs 5, and it just trashes one at a time. No hand size increasing, unless you're trashing an estate, right? But yeah, I don't know. This doesn't really do it for me. Okay, Pact. Uh, and probably when it's good, it might be really good sometimes when you need trashing for the long haul, but I don't know. It's not a premier trasher anyway. Slap a card on it automatically, and oh yes, absolutely it is. Right, then it's like pretty much better than Junk Dealer in an upgrade because it has a bigger reach. But actually, maybe not even because it doesn't give you the money and it doesn't give you the upgraded, more expensive card. Okay, anyway, oh, this is a while this is in play, so I guess if you trash other expensive stuff too, that seems unlikely. Unless you're playing like a lot of these and somehow also have expensive cards that you also want to trash. Alright, anyway, Pact. Pact costs 2. It's not worth anything, but when you play it, you have to trash. So it's a one-shot treasure. For each Pact in the trash, gain a spoils, putting it into your hand. So, okay, this is interesting. And then when you buy it, everybody gains one. So first of all, this pile could just run out very fast. And then it's really weird because if you play like the 8th Pact, you get lots and lots and lots of spoils. And you get more than your opponent, but in some sense, don't you just want to hang on to these and not trash them because they're always better if you wait for your opponents to crack them first? Right? Like, I guess I have 2, so I crack one, and then I crack another one, and I end up with 3 total spoils. And then he cracks his, and he also gets 3 total spoils. And then spoils just come around. Yeah, I mean, that makes some weird dynamic where eventually you have lots of spoils and stuff, but... And lots of spoils is just a weird feeling thing. And then you probably start running out of spoils, and because there's only 15, right? So you crack number 7, and there's 9 or 10 or 11 spoils out. So if I crack number 8, I'm only getting 4 anyway. But I think you just hold on to this and don't crack it too often. Because turning this into a spoils has no immediate benefit, so it's not like, oh, I have to do that right now. And because you want to be the person holding on to them, you don't want to be the person with a lot of them, which probably means you really don't want to get this, and yeah, I don't know. Just doesn't seem that great. I mean, even if it didn't have the weird thing and if it was just trashing it to gain a spoils. Think about it that way. I'm buying a card that will turn into that when I get to play it, it doesn't do anything for me. It just gets me a card. So I'm getting a card to get me a card to be a one-shot gold. I find it very hard to believe that I'd ever want this, or almost ever want this, over silver unless my opponent has somehow made the mistake of getting a bunch of them already. Yeah, I don't like it. Ferret. You may trash this. If you do, gain coins equal to the cost in coins of an action card in the trash that you choose. So it's a one shot, like a... And then when it's in play, when you buy a card, you gain a ferret from the supplier of the trash. So mostly it's a one-shot terminal +4, sort of like Death Cart, but without the extra junk. But it can also get you more of them. Yeah, it just doesn't do anything for me. Incendiarist. Is that a word? It's a cool word if it is. I just don't think it is. Okay, action attack looter costs 5. You may trash a card from your hand if it is an... And then, okay. So if it's an action, everybody else gains a ruins. I have a feeling that that will not often be worth it unless you have a ruins yourself or like a chapel or something that has outlived its usefulness. If it's a treasure, gain a spoils. So you can trash a copper to gain a spoils. It's probably pretty good, but not super great. And if it's a victory card, each other player gains a curse. So this would be the first cursor of the set, actually. And it's interesting because it's like a marginal cursor. You only give out a few, probably. But you can trash like 3 estates to give out 3 curses, which is pretty strong. And the flexibility of this probably makes it decent, but not broken. Yeah, I sort of quite like this card. It's a nice little card. Okay, Priestcraft. Priestcraft is an attack. Strange. Alright. I don't know why Priestcraft would be an attack. That doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. I also don't understand what Priestcraft is. Regardless, let's move on. Costs 5. It's a terminal silver, and you can either trash a card from your hand or make everyone else top deck something from the trash. Oh me, oh my. Which helps also run piles out. So they're not actually gaining it from the trash, they're getting a copy of a card that's in the trash. Which stops it from being political, stops it from being, oh, there's only 1 estate left in the trash. So, okay, first of all, it's a terminal silver trash a card, which is probably a bit worse than Junk Dealer, etc., etc. But not ridiculously weak. So, okay, that's fine. But then it can also be silver and junk your opponent on the top of their deck. Sort of similar to Sea Hag, but probably not quite as bad. Maybe that bad. And that's a pretty powerful effect. That it can be either makes me think that it's probably a bit strong, although I guess it probably can't junking attack them until for a while. I quite like the idea anyway. I don't know if it would work at all at 6, but I would definitely at least like to see it tried there if it doesn't work at 5. So I'm pretty up on this card, but I'm quite cautious towards it too. Alright, Miser costs 4. Choose 2, and they must be different, which makes it sort of feel intriguey, right? But anyway, the spoils makes it feel, Dark Ages-y. But terminal silver, gain a spoils, gain a silver. So if you terminal silver, gain a silver, that's almost the same as Explorer that doesn't hit province. Which, okay, I mean, for 4, I mean, Explorer's not the super sexiest 5, but they can't all be the greatest 5 ever. And this is just so close to being as good. And it also, you can gain spoils instead of whatever options, which sort of makes this, I think, better. I think this is a better card to have than Explorer 2. While it's, well, it might actually be too strong. A Silver Flutter that you gain it to hand is probably close to, if not better than Jack for big money. especially because you can gain the spoils, which at the right time is going to be better than the silver. Certainly as you're coming towards your last shuffle. And silver and spoils if you already have the amount of money you want. Yeah. Yeah, I think this card is just a little bit too strong for 4, and probably just not all that exciting at 5. I quite like it, but it's sort of in that weird tweener area. You give it... It's too similar probably to Explorer for 5. Um, yeah, I don't know what to say. Charter. Cantrip. Trash the top card of your deck. Why? Okay, and then you can gain a card from the trash. So, it might just be a cantrip that you trash the card from top from your deck and gain it back. It might be a cantrip that you trash the top card from your deck and get a better card, sort of randomly. And if you somehow get it to trash itself, you get a draw 2. However, I don't like this design because most of the time there's just no incentive. It doesn't do anything, right? To gain from the trash, you have to put something in the trash. But if it's the thing that you just put there, then this card is pointless. And if there aren't any other trashers, then it's going to be the thing that you just put there. I mean, unless it's late game and you're grabbing an estate back or something, or there's other trashers, but it seems way too conditional on other trashers. Now, if you gained the card from the trash into your hand, I would be much more on top of this, although then you'd have to worry somewhat about the combo of this and this and this and this and this, and somehow drawing your deck and then gaining them all back or something. Oh, I guess if you gain it into your hand, then it's just like a strictly better lab, so that doesn't really work at anything less than 6. Yeah, the concept is not actually something that I'd want to work that hard to make work anyway. So, alright. Okay, so Robber Baron is an action attack looter. You can discard a ruins. If you do, +3 and everybody else gets militia'd, which is really strong. Otherwise, you get more ruins. So this just turns your deck into lots of ruins. And then once it is lots of ruins, and then you gain 2 ruins. Once it is lots of ruins, it tries to do a good curse card problem thing. The problem is, I've got to doubt, just like all the good curse card problems, that this is really balanceable. Either it's going to be ridiculously good, and that you just get a lot of these and a lot of ruins, and win all the time, or it's just bad, and you just don't get it. And there's just very not that much room for middle ground where it's reasonable. Which is what I want to see in a card. I just want it to be reasonable sometimes, right? Not to mention just the whole I have ruins and they're good for me is not the most exciting thing ever. And Deathcart sort of already has that space. Okay, Sacrifice. Trash a card from your hand. If you do, 2 and gain a spoils. So this is very similar to that card we saw a few ago, and but it trashes a card also. And that can be a pro or con, but it's probably generally a slight pro. This can't silver flood you, but it's actually probably quite strong for big money, because slow trashing is not bad for big money, and then this is a silver and it gains you spoils, which silver and gaining spoils is, terminal silver and gaining spoils is not too bad. It's probably not overpowered for big money though, and it does cost 5, so just not exciting enough for me. Okay, King of the Slums. It's an action looter. I should have put in my prediction for there being a lot of looters. Anyway, Look at the top 3 cards of the Ruins pile. Gain any number of them, putting them into your hand. Put the rest back in any order. Choose up to 3 Ruins from your hand. Play the first one. Okay. So, you get to gain up to 3 Ruins. You choose up to 3 from your hand and get to play them, and you get to king the first one. So, okay. I really doubt that you will almost ever, except at the end of the game, really want to gain more than 1 here. Rearranging the Ruins is interesting. Excuse me. This is it worth it? Well, if you're doing it to, let's see, if you get a Ruined Library, then this is a smithy that makes you gain a Ruins and can play other Ruins, but okay, that's not a huge effect. Or it's a Terminal Gold that makes you gain a Ruins. Or it's a big Sifter with Survivor that makes you gain a Ruins. Or it's like a Village plus Necropolis that makes you gain a Ruins, if you get the Ruined Village. Or it's some weird triple buy card that makes you gain a Ruins. I mean, that's probably fine. Having to gain a Ruins is a pretty steep drawback, so I don't think this would be very good very often. So you might actually just want to do something else with it. Make it a little better somehow. Might be a little bit too good for 4. Although maybe it's not. Smithy that you have to gain a Ruins is not ridiculous as a 4. Plus, I guess you don't have to gain a Ruins if you've already gotten 1. And if you have more than 1 Ruins in hand, it can be even better. Yeah, I mean, this card sort of works. It's not my favorite ever, but it sort of works. Okay, Astral Conqueror. Each other player, it's Eternal Silver, it's an action attack looter. Each other player gains a curse, a Ruins, and a spoils. This cannot cause the last player to gain the last curse or Ruins in the supply. I don't understand. Who's the last player? Anyway, Terminal Silver, pretty good. They have to gain a curse and a Ruins. Holy crap, that's good. That's just much better than Mountebank. It also can't be blocked. And they have to gain a spoils. Well, that doesn't really offset it enough. I think that's still... even if you could block it with a curse, I don't think it would be... I think it would still be better than Mountebank. And, more importantly, you are running 2 piles out very fast. Right? Curses and Ruins go at the same time. I had an interesting idea for a 4-cost card that was similar to this, except they gained curses and you gained Ruins. And basically it turns out being similar to a mutually junking monument, but it just runs out. It's a little bit better because the Ruins generally have a slightly more usefulness, but then on the other hand it's junking, so there's that. And if you're already playing these terminals, then, well, anyway, whatever. The problem was it runs out 2 piles at once, which is sort of the IGG problem. But this does it, you don't have to go hog out for it. You know, you get 1 or 2 of these and those piles are going to run, and then you just go after duchies. And I think this just makes for a very boring game where this is like the strongest card ever printed. I guess the spoils are sort of nicer when they're always using them to grab duchies because you have to, because this is just going to be a game that ends on 3 piles and duchies are going to be good. But no, I don't like it. Okay, Smelter, and I also don't understand the second phrase of it. I guess maybe it's just it can't be the last one of either of those to try to worry about the piles running thing, but I don't know. That seems very situational. Like, you can get around that if there's just one. And or it exacerbates first player advantage, right? Because I got my 5 in, you can only get 4 in. I don't know. Anyway, Smelter A. Hey. Costs 3, it's non-terminal, trash a card from your hand, gaining a card of equal cost and top decking it. Which seems pretty lousy. Right? You can basically use that as a non-terminal top deck a card. If you've got a victory card in a farming village, you can do something. Victory. So this plus tunnel plus farming village combo. Yeah, you're not really gonna want to do that. Obviously, great with peddler. Yeah, that just seems like such a weak effect. Aha! But when you would gain a silver, you may reveal this from your hand. If you do, instead gain a spoils. So first of all, I don't think you're almost ever going to play the play effect. Just because, like, what are you, I mean, you turn a ruins or a curse into a copper, you might do that, but, and you turn, I guess you turn, you know, estates into useful 2 costs. You're just not going to use it that much. You're mostly using it for the reaction, where you can just start buying spoils, possibly gaining spoils other ways. Which just isn't that exciting. I think actually silver is a slightly better card than spoils for most of the game. And then it pivots once the game is about to end. Unless you're playing an engine, in which case it might be better almost all the time. In fact, probably is. I don't know. It seems a little bit strange. The on-play effect is a little too weak for my taste. It's fine, but not my favorite. Okay, Junkyard B. Choose one, trash a card from your hand. That's pretty weak. Gain up to 2 cards from the trash with a total cost of up to 5 and trash this. And it's worth 1 VP for every... So it counts cards in the trash. Which I don't really like on a VP card. I mean, Donald's talked about that, and yeah, I don't know. It seems sort of weird and could be really good if they're strong trashing, and otherwise it's not very good because you're just slow trashing and then making it worth some victory points, I guess, and it doesn't really encourage you to end the game because you get down to a golden deck of like a whole bunch of these and a few, like, you know, if you could get 5 or 6 of these and buy a copper and trash a copper every turn. Okay, some hands you can't trash one, but you just hold on to this, and then it's just, well, can they end the game before you get enough cards in the trash? That just doesn't seem fun. I don't know. Okay. Cost is number 3 on Alehouse. When you trash or hashtag 3, number 3. When you trash a card this turn, I don't know why it's not a while this is in play. Then it just does nothing when you play it. Anyway, when you trash a card, plus an action, discard a card, draw a card, and you may gain a card costing less than the trashed card. Then trash a card from your hand or from play. Wow! So it doesn't do anything if there aren't other trashers, which is... Oh, I guess you always trash a card from your hand or from play. I'm so confused. Why is that not phrased the first thing? Like, I think that's what it's trying to be, because that's the only thing that makes sense, is it should be trash a card from your hand or from play. While this is in play, when you trash a card, plus an action, discard a card, plus a card. Oh, I guess that these stack more, because if you trash a second one, you still get the effect of this after you've trashed it from play. But I don't think that's good. Yeah, anyway, let's just assume that we fix the wording to trash a card from your hand or from play. And then while this is in play, when you trash a card, plus an action, discard a card, plus a card, you may gain a card costing less than the trashed card. So it cantrips in a filtering way, but where you have to discard first, which is the bad filtering. And you trash a card, and you can gain a card costing... This card's incredibly powerful then, because it's a cantrip draw that might be slightly better, it might be slightly worse. Probably slightly worse overall because you're going to get to a thin deck, but regardless, not that much. And later on, you can, trash stuff from play, which normally won't be that great, and you can gain cheaper stuff than the trashed card, which, again, is not a huge benefit, because you don't often just want to trash for benefit, trade down for no reason. But hey, if you can, sometimes better. So this card is just really strong, really, really strong, because it's like a cantrip trasher for 3. Okay, Ignoble Brigand. I have no idea what that's playing off of. Action attack looter costs 4, plus some money. You may trash a treasure from your hand. Each other player may discard a treasure. If he doesn't, he gains a ruins. So it stacks like Torturer, sort of. But it's a terminal copper that lets you trash a treasure from your hand. So it's like a terminal copper trasher. It's like a copper trasher that doesn't cost you the money. And then it also attacks them. Maybe that's fine, but it doesn't excite me. It doesn't seem fun to me. Okay, Junkyard C. Where's Junkyard Wars going to come up? Alright, trash a card from your hand. Gain a card costing exactly 1 more than it, putting it into your hand. So it's half of a remake or a non-cantrip upgrade. But you got to put it in hand. And then when you trash this, trash a card from your hand, gain a card costing exactly 1 less than this. Whoa! So 3 of these turns into you trash one of them, play 1 to trash another to gain a 5 in hand, and a 3. So you could really load up on these things, because 5s and 3s aren't bad usually, right? You can at least get a decent 5 and a silver, or trashing estates, you get silver in hand. It's not bad. The other hand doesn't really seem broken, because it's only like half a remake, so it's pretty weak trashing. And it's not cantrip like upgrade. So it's not like exactly a strong trasher. Being able to gain in your hand is pretty nice. It's probably better at 4 than it would be at 3 because of what you can gain. Although, on the other hand, you can't double open this, which you'd probably quite like to do. Yeah, it's an interesting little card. I'll keep my eye on it. Heretic. It's an action-reaction. Trash a card from your hand. Choose 1. So it's either Terminal Apprentice or Salvager without the buy. That's probably a reasonable 5 cost right there. And then when one of your cards is trashed, you may trash this from your hand. If you do, put the trashed card into your hand. So you can turn this into whatever card of yours is getting trashed. So a couple of these can get you to, you can draw 8 cards off of trashing one, right? If you have a province in hand also. So that's a little bit of a nice plus, but it's not that much of a plus, so that's fine. Though 8 cards, you'd probably actually take 8 money, unless you had a bunch of villages and a big engine. Um, yeah, that's probably a fine card. Iron Maiden. It's another action attack looter. It's a terminal silver. Each player with 5 or more cards discards 1, so you can't hit them super lots of times. If they discard an action, they gain a copper. Well, you wouldn't do that. That's terrible. Right? I don't want to discard my action if I have to gain a copper. If they discard a treasure, they gain a ruins. And if they discard a victory, they get a curse. Well, I guess the problem is the first 2 just keep feeding into each other because it goes in your hand. So the first 2 feed into each other. This stacks like nobody's business. Yeah, you have to get some way to play more than one, but it's a very powerful effect. And I guess once the ruins or coppers run out, then it's just like a cut purse. But even so, it's just like a cut purse. That's fine. And if they can discard a victory card to gain a curse, and then discard the curse and be done. But that's pretty powerful because it also gives you 2. Yeah, I mean that's, I think, too strong. And then it has a when you trash, and you may trash up to 2 from your hand. No, this just seems really good, really good. Too good. And not fun either. I have a bunch of bad choices, which is probably, again, mechanically fine, but not, oh, it's a fun game thing. Okay, Satan's Workshop. I already don't like the name. It's an action attack. Costs 5. Uh-huh. I don't understand this. Tokens. Each other player can reveal a hand with not many treasures. And then they have to gain a copper in hand. I mean, you have to gain bad cards to start, but oh, no, I guess it's a 2? You start with 2? Yeah, this seems really strong, and I don't like it at all for, like, any part of it. Um, yeah, sorry whoever designed this, but this is like my least favorite card in a while. Alright, bargain. Ooh, the pure reaction. When you would gain a card, you can just go, okay, we've seen this recently around the forums. I like my rephrasing of it better, but, well, there it is. It's basically a copper that costs 1 and has some weird interactions with, like, ironworks, and curse givers turn into other coppers instead. But yeah, not too fun for me. Okay, soldier. Each other player, it's a cantrip. Everybody else has to trash copper. And then you can trash this to gain a mercenary if there are more than 4 treasures in the trash, or a Madman if there are more than 2 of these. Yeah, that's the right phrasing. The or there, that clarification is actually unnecessary, but it would probably be confusing enough that you'd want to put it in on an FAQ. So the downside is that it copper trashes for them. This is actually, first of all, obviously very good in any kind of against any kind of slog, because trashing their coppers is actually legitimately an attack as opposed to not really an attack. Unless you can somehow just stack too many of these too early. That's the other problem, is that if you can just eat them out of all their coppers really fast, they might not have an economy, and that could lead to some weird degeneracies where you like pin them too fast. I'm pretty leery of this. I also don't like extra ways of gaining mercenary and madmen. It just doesn't really do it for me, especially because it's actually really easy to gain a mercenary this way. Much easier than Urchin, I think. Not necessarily faster, but easier. Although I guess maybe they just never trash the 4th copper. They just get 3 copper trashes out of this and you've wasted a bunch of time. So you actually probably want to go for Madman more. This also seems less of a drawback to have to get Madman. Like, you have to not buy something on Hermit to get the Madman. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like this. Okay, Archaeologist, cantrips. You may trash the top card of the Ruins pile. Well, pile trashing is good, but that's sort of meh. And then, while it's in play, when you play an action card, play a copy of the top card. Aha! So, I guess by the time while this is in play, you aren't playing it, so it doesn't trigger off itself. Playing the top card of the Ruins pile. Now that is an interesting mechanic that I quite like. This card seems actually just rather weak to me, because you have to play this and then something else just to make that a little better. Although, I take that back. Making that a little better is really good. Right? Every card that you play gives you an extra card, or an extra action, or an extra money. Just adding any vanilla effect like that is really good. Now, buy and survivors maybe not, but then you can trash the top card of the... Yeah, I quite like the idea of that card. This is one of my favorites, Archaeologist. Okay, Stronghold. Cost 6. Worth 1 VP. Okay, we're going to assume that it's a victory card. Since it's worth VP. Worth 1 VP for every 2 spoils in your deck, round down. Okay, and then when you gain it, gain 3 spoils. Okay, sirens are going off. Could this card be broken? Well, the first way I want to check for it to be broken is as a victory card. And as a victory card, well, how many spoils are there? There's 15, I think? So this can be worth up to 7, and it only costs 6. And that's more than Province. Yeah, I guess, though, for that to happen, for that to work, you'd have to have, like, almost all the spoils and not play them. So you have a bunch of these and a bunch of spoils, which is so many dead cards in your deck that if you can actually pull that off to get so many of these without spending too many spoils, then I think that's harder to do than probably getting that many provinces. So I guess that's okay, unless you can spend spoils and then get them back. So we have to worry about how it is with Marauder and Bandit Camp, mostly Bandit Camp, I think. Um, but it's probably not that bad from a victory card standpoint, right? You gain 3 or 4. If you gain 4 of these, then you have 12. Then they're only worth 4. Um, Wait, you gain 4 of these, then they're worth 6. So yeah, but four cards that are worth 6 is not anything to write home about if you're trying to go just not for provinces at all, because you have 16 basically cards that you can't use. So having that be worth 24 is actually really bad. If you don't have the full 14, it's really bad in the terms of victory points per card you have in your deck. So I guess you've got to get the value out of this from the spoils usually. And okay, so you gain 3 spoils, and so first of all, it combos well with Trash for Benefit, right? Because it costs 6, and mostly you're using it for the gain effect. And then 3 spoils. Well, that's a lot of spoils, and I guess you probably want that over gold reasonably often. But like all the time, I'm not sure. I guess not for an engine first of all, probably unless it's got Trash for Benefit, and then maybe for an engine. Well, I guess maybe compare it to Pillage. It's 1 more spoils than Pillage. You get them right away instead of having to crack it. But it also leaves a dead card hanging around. It costs 1 more, and you don't get the super powerful Pillage attack. I mean, getting them right away is pretty big, but it might be a little strong on that front. Would probably use some testing. It's a card. Okay, Garrison. Costs 3, trash a card from your hand. For each 2 that costs rounded down, gain a spoil. So you can turn an estate into a spoils, you can turn a 4 cost into 2 spoils. You can turn a 6 cost into 3 spoils. Alright. And then this is a little bit weird phrasing on the reaction, but basically you can turn this into somebody's trashed card. Which is good if there's other Trash for Benefit going around, probably otherwise not. That's reasonable, but unexciting. Okay. Raid is a looter. Choose 1, play and trash up to 2 actions from your hand, or gain any number of action cards from the trash, costing up to 3, and play them in any order. Wow. So the idea, I guess, is you get a lot of ruins, although you have to buy them, basically. When you trash this, each other player gains ruins. You basically would have to buy them. Oh wait, no. It's like a one-shot throne room. One-shot on those cards. But it never misses, and you can gain them back. This card just seems way too powerful. Like, you have to go for it. I mean, the issue is your opponent can pick it up and then steal the good actions that you're playing. And I sort of doubt that you're almost ever, like... Yeah, I guess the looterness of this isn't really the issue. The issue is, oh my gosh, I'm just going to use this as throne room, but better. And then the drawback is that your opponent can get your cards back. You have to trash them, but then whenever you get this, you got to play them again. So that doesn't actually seem that bad. It seems too much better than throne room to me. Or procession, really. Like, This could easily cost 4, probably cost 5. I sort of like the idea, I think, but I think I want it to cost 5. I guess it's placing 2 different cards rather than Throne Room. Yeah, maybe this can cost 4. I don't know. I guess playing 2 different cards is probably better than playing the same one twice. Probably? Not sure. This is definitely an interesting one to watch, though. Okay, Surveyor. It's non-terminal. You can trash a victory card. If you do, gain 2 cards. Another player buys one. You can... so you can gain an estate in hand next turn to turn into 2 silvers, top decking 1, which is basically what you want to use this for, but the issue is, like, through the mid-game, there's not going to be... Of course, it's non-terminal and can turn estates into 2 silvers. That's not bad. It's not exciting, though. Okay, Smelter B. We're almost to the end, right? Yeah, pretty close. Smelter B costs 3. You can trash a card from your hand. If you trash an action plus 2 actions. If you trash a treasure, then this is a terminal silver trashing 1 at a time. Which isn't at all bad, actually, I don't think, right? Trash an estate. Yeah, that's a pretty decent early trasher, I think. Trash a card, you may discard this from your hand. If you do, gain a card costing less than that. That's also pretty nice. That's a nice, reasonable card. Okay, Condottiero. 2 buys, 2 money. Each player, including you, may discard a treasure. If they do, you Chancellor and immediately reshuffle. And then everybody else gains a ruins no matter what. I think this is... and then when you trash this, look through your discard pile, and you can trash 2 of them. This is a little bit better, I think, than... it's probably comparable to Marauder. It's not interesting to me, especially not separate from Marauder, but... okay, there it is. Okay, Angry Mob. It's an action attack looter, plus an action, plus a buy. Each player gains a ruins, so including you. Once in play, when you buy a ruins, you can trash it and get a mob boss. Mob boss is not very good. Unless you have a lot of ruins. This card just seems terrible overall. Sure, you can get like 3 cards and 3 money, but your hand had 3 ruins in it. And that's actually not that great. It's sort of weird. Weird isn't necessarily bad, but I don't like this card. I tend to really not like cards that give you bonuses for having bad cards. There was 1 or 2 earlier that actually seemed reasonable, but this one doesn't do it for me. Okay, Charter B. It's worth 5, or it costs 5, worth 2. Oh, it's a treasure. Yeah, okay. And then everybody else gets a ruins in hand. Yeah, that's quite powerful. But on the other hand, everybody gains a ruin. Like, it's got to be worse than Mountebank, right? I guess it can't be blocked like Mountebank can, but it gives out ruins instead of curses, and it gives them in hand, which is actually somewhat useful. But it's a treasure, so... I imagine it's a very powerful card, but probably outside the top 10, like a little bit worse than your Witch Mountebank Cultist kind of range. just below that. I would guess. Okay, dance with an S. Macabre. Ooh, a double line card. Okay, anyway, you may play an action from your hand for none of its effects. I don't know that that works in the rules, but at least I understand what it's trying to do. If you do, plus 4 cards and plus an action. So if you get this, then you get to turn this and another action in your hand into 2 labs, which is pretty good, but you have to make it collide. So it's not great. It's also incredibly hard to get because when you buy it, you have to trash it. And you have to gain 2 cheaper cards of different costs, which basically tells me this is either good with a gainer, because you can double lab probably pretty often with a gainer. You can get lots and lots of 4 costs, in which case you're going to be drawing your whole deck with a few of these, because it chains into itself really, really, really well. So that's really good if there's a gainer around. And then if there aren't any gainers, it's bad unless there's like 2 costs that you'd actually want. So like you could get Courtyard and Silver or Village, and if there's a reasonable 2 costs that you want, basically, then it's going to be good just to be able to get 2 cheaper cards for 4. Is pretty good. So I think this is probably too powerful. It's sort of the opposite of Terror Broken. It's usually too good because there's usually going to be a gainer or a good 2 cost. But then like 40% of the time, or maybe it's not 40%, but reasonably high amount of the time it's too good, and a reasonably high amount of the time it's dreadful. Because if there isn't any good 2 cost, like I gain a Silver and an Estate, I guess I'm just buying this at the end of the game when I happen to randomly hit exactly 4, right? Or I guess you could get a Silver and a Copper with it, but which makes it good for slogs anyway. Alright. Garderobe. Garderobe? I have no idea how to pronounce that. Garderobe? Garderobe? Is it related to garters? But garter is with a T. Guard with the E makes me think of like on guard, like the fencing, and then robe. Yeah, I would guess this has something to do with swords. Anyway, it's an action, it's a looter. It costs 2. It's an action Silver, and you have to gain a ruins, put it in your hand, and you can play a cheap action. So this, well, you're junking yourself to get a, action Silver is really not that great of an effect. Playing cheap actions is fine, but probably not worth having so many ruins. At least in the long run. Maybe in the short run the ruins effect is good enough to, because you get to gain it, play it right away. Probably really good with good trashing. You can just trash all the ruins away, but this is probably fine. Usually weak, but has some interesting spots for it. Never broken. Okay, drug. Costs 5, it's a peddler, you may gain a ruins. If you do, it gets you another card. You can gain a ruins, and if you do, it gives you another action. So it can either be worth -3 VP if every player has fewer ruins than you. Well, why do you have to do that? So basically it's just a peddler that you could make into... You can't like stock up on these really and use them for the extra effects. Unless you have strong trashing, in which case who cares, because you're just going to trash them all again by the end of the game. And then it's just a peddler for 5 that has the ruins in play, and you can offhandedly, that one time you need it, play it, and maybe, and yeah, I don't know, or play a few, like 1 or 2 of them is still good, because -3 VP isn't that huge of a deal, but I mean, yeah, it's not. I don't know. I don't really like it. I it's not that much that different and unique enough from like just normal peddler for me to be enthused about it, especially with weird ruins things. So people like to do weird ruins things, I guess. Alright, that's fine. Okay. Street Sweeper costs 4. It's a lab and trash a card, which is hellaciously good. And when you trash this, gain a ruins? We just won't trash that very often. Lab and trash a card is really powerful. Like, yeah, you can run out of cards you want to trash. That would be bad, but then you just don't play this. And like Lab and Trash a Card is better than Junk Dealer, a lot better than Junk Dealer. Um, like better than Upgrade, better than Lab, really, and it costs 4. That card is just probably too good at 5. Really, it's probably too powerful to be printed at 5. Um, and the looterness of it is just not very applicable. If it was when you trash any card, gain a ruins, okay. Uh, but I mean, even so, then that's just sort of weird. You're trashing a card and turning it into a ruins for a lab effect. Still probably decent for 4, if especially if Rats tells us anything. Anyway, okay, Blood Feud. It's an action attack looter again. Costs 4 plus an action plus a money. So it's a copper, and everybody gains a ruins in hand. Another one of these things. Or reveal up to 3 cards from your hand, play the revealed action cards in any order, and then trash all the revealed cards. So it's another thing. It's blood money, but feud. Like you can do good stuff with your ruins, and it's probably pretty good. I just don't like these things. Okay, Barrister. Barrister plus 2 cards. Each player, including you, reveals the top 2. And then you get to choose a treasure to trash. That's really powerful for big money. Um, and then you gain a treasure from the trash. Okay. Replace one of each starting player's starting coppers with a claim. So you need 4 claims in the set because it's really made to be up to a 4-player game. So you don't actually need the 5th one. But well, there's a randomizer maybe. I don't know. Okay. Types treasure costs 0. It's worth 1. And when you play it through, you look through your discard pile. You may trash a claim from your discard pile of your hand. If you do, gain a gold put in your hand. So if you somehow get other players' claims, you can turn them into golds. But okay, Barrister itself is just way too hosing of any kind of money-based strategies whatsoever. If they're playing any kind of treasures for their economy, you're gonna be able to hit silver and get silver back, or hit gold and get gold back too often, or even just if it's not often but it's occasionally, like you're gonna hit them occasionally and it's gonna be very swingy because it's just such a good effect. Uh, right? Like Noble Brigand is a terminal copper. This is a moat. Moat is much better for big money, and you get to trash your own stuff, right? You get to trash your own coppers. So yeah, I don't like that. Okay, last one, Mendicant. It's an action looter, costs 2, cantrip, gain a ruins put in your hand, play any number of ruins if you played 2 or more, plus a card. It's another one of these things. I don't like any of those. Gain a ruins and do something good. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that there are so many of them, but I don't like any of them. Alright, this is like a 90-minute video plus, and I can't believe you actually sat through and watched it. I give you a... well, I don't give you anything. If you want a pizza roll, leave a comment on this web zone. And actually, if you want some chocolate chip cookies, They don't mail well, or I might send you some. If you're somehow in my area and know it, yeah, no. I'd love to make cookies for you, but you shouldn't trust me to make them for you, and they don't mail well, and I don't have that much kind of time. So, but anyway, thanks for watching the video. And nitwit blubber oddment tweak and talk for about 3 or 4 minutes, looking like I'm talking normally, but not really saying anything else. And something about the Housemartins. Hey, that was a great Easter egg. And the watch. I do have that pocket watch. Yeah. Lots of random references at the end for all of you lovely people who watch this whole thing. Also, you're insane.